Okay, where's the video? Why you should never get married in your 20s. I found it. All right, let me play this first.
Last thing you should be worried about is getting married and having children. That's the truth. So what are you doing with marriage and children? You have your 30s to be worried about that. Make some money, build yourself, get to know yourself, date. Listen, there are some experiences if you don't date when you're in your 20s, you won't get it. What are you doing with marriage and children? You have your 30s to do all that, to be obsessed with that. And these days, do you see the divorce rates? Please. And all this divorce is only two things that is causing them: cheating and money issues. Yes. So imagine you don't having anything and then you enter into marriage. And if you're a man too, please make some money. What are you using marriage for in your 20s as a man? Listen, men and women, if I catch any woman marrying in their 20s and then we the ones in our 30s are now sending money out there, please focus on yourself in your 20s. Don't let anybody tell you.
She said focus on yourself in your 20s. It's not only in your 20s that you should focus on yourself. You should always focus on yourself. Okay? Not just in your 20s. You should always focus on yourself. You can't give what you don't have. So if you're not taking care of yourself, eventually your self-esteem will mimic that, and then it will show up in your relationships. All right. So she's not wrong. It's just that she's saying it in the context that the only time you should do that is the 20s. You should always do that. Focus on yourself. Okay. Maybe you should always take care of yourself more so, right? Focus on yourself is, I guess, another level. Like the focus should be you, right? Well, if you are pouring from an empty cup, then at any point in your life, I will ask you to focus on yourself anyway. At any point, I will say, hey, you've lost yourself. You need to refocus back on yourself. I will say it to a man, I will say it to a woman. Okay? Especially if that man or woman is the one doing majority of the weight lifting of trying to save a marriage, I would definitely ask them to focus on themselves. If a person is not in that position of trying to save a marriage, they probably can't comprehend what she's talking about anyway. Let's keep going.
You say, and now who trim, and now then oh police.
All right, what language is that she was speaking? Is she speaking Ghanaian or something? What was that she was just speaking just now? Anybody knows? Let me know if you know what she was. Namunti, what's that? What was that she was just saying? Was she cursing us? Anyway, I've got 5 secrets I want to share with you today. That I felt like I needed to share this because listen, I love you guys and I want you to enjoy marriage to the fullest. Okay, I want you to enjoy marriage to the fullest, and I could just easily see some of these loopholes that the devil is taking advantage of. A lot of it has to do with your ideologies, some of the talking points that we've been saying to ourselves for a long time. They're supposed to be harmless, but then they're becoming reality. Let's keep going.
Statistics shows that 80% of women have their second to sixth children in their 40s.
Statistics also shows that 80% of women have their second to sixth children in their 40s. Okay, that does not tell us how healthy that is. That does not tell us much. I don't know if it's better. I don't know. What's the point? That is okay for you to wait? I guess it's okay for you to wait. I don't think it's okay for you to wait. I think it's okay for you to live life wherever you find yourself. Whatever age you've decided to be more intentional with your life, I think that's okay. If you're in that age, in that moment, but deliberately waiting is a terrible idea. Because there's no such thing in the first place. Let's keep going.
What are you telling me? And I'm going to fire again away. I'm going to market. Come on, guys. If you're in your 20s,
you will
focus on building yourself, be matured, go through things.
Focus on building yourself, be matured, go through things. Like what? Like breakfast, a bunch of heartbreaks, collect bodies. What is she talking about?
20s. So by the time you get to your 30s, bing.
So by the time you get to your 30s, what happens?
Then you use that knowledge to enter into marriage. If you don't date in your 20s, if you don't experience life in your 20s, what are you going to teach your children in your 30s? Yeah. So please focus and do your
So this is what started the conversation that I'm now taking a little bit further. Okay. So there's this video of Daddy Freeze reacting. I'm not sure if he said anything extra, but let me take a look. Let's see.
In your 20s, the last thing you should be worried about is getting married and having children. That's the truth. So what are you doing with marriage and children? You have your 30s to be worried about that. Make some money, build yourself, get to know yourself, date. Listen, there are some experiences, if you don't date when you're in your 20s, you won't get it. What are you doing with marriage and children? You have your 30s to do.
There's no experience you're getting in your 20s that is so enjoyable that you can't get in the rest of your life. Okay. The one thing you can't get in the rest of your life is time. If you waste time, if you deliberately waste time, you're never, I don't care how much time it is, seconds, minutes, you never get time back. Now, can that translate to pressure? Yes, that's true. It can translate to pressure. However, that's what we talk about here. So if I'm in your personal life, you will never hear me talk about this. You will never hear me talk about this because, first of all, a prophet has no honor in his own town. That's number one. You're not going to value what I have to say anyway. Number two, there's no need for me to do that. I don't think there's a bet. I think the pressure is not good. But if you're coming to a place like this where I can share with you, enlighten you on some of this stuff, I think we owe it to ourselves to tell ourselves the truth, right? Which is a truth that we all can agree to, which is that time is not your mate. Okay, time is not your mate. So deliberately putting time on hold cannot work. Now, if circumstances happens and what we call the right timing, things will happen in the right timing, I agree with that. You can't force yourself into a decision, and no one should pressurize you to force yourself into it too. But when we start to say things over and over and over again, it becomes truth. When we start to use our own experience to come and advise younger people, we start becoming their truth. They will start internalizing it, and I think that's dangerous to ask people to deliberately wait. I don't think that's a good advice. My little sister got married at 26 and she was more mature than all of us at that time in terms of relationship. It's more of the maturity aspect. Maturity is a function of age, but so many other things, like sometimes personality, temperament, how the person was raised, and environment. There's so many other things that goes into maturity, right? So more so of the issue here is maturity, right? Sometimes you just find yourself in that position, the timing, maturity, the opportunity aligns, and it can happen at any age from 18 and onwards. It can happen from 18 to 60 for the rest of your life. That's the reality. It can happen at any time, but everything else being equal. Like, okay, let's assume that those factors, other factors are not there, right? The only thing that's left with you to make this decision is time, literally age. I think it's a terrible idea to continue to advise people to wait. Because some people don't even have the choice of waiting. Some people are not blessed with, you can just decide. Either we're talking about marriage or we're talking about having children. A lot of people in the Indomie generation, they act like you decide this ultimately. You decide it to an extent, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of that we don't control, right? So sometimes the opportunity presents itself, but you've heard one auntie say, no, you must, and then all of that is mixing in with your ability to decide or to rise up to the occasion, and you're like, well, I'm just not mature. And actually, sometimes it's not a matter of you being mature, it's a matter of you have to rise up to the occasion because you realize that certain opportunities will not always present itself. Can this translate to I'm pressurizing you? It depends on where you're coming from, but that's never my intentions. Okay? That's never my intention. My intention is for me to give you some tools to work with so you can make your own decision at the end of the day. Okay? But precisely, I'm saying you do not decide these things ultimately. There's so much other things that go into it, and that's why we say, hey, be prepared, because preparation meeting opportunity is what many people call you're lucky. and the rest of them, they just want to leave it in the hands of fate. So maturity definitely is key in all of this, right? I think an average human being is matured enough to rise up to the occasion at 25. But if they've been hearing from aunties and uncles like Daddy Freeze that you should wait till 30, of course, if they're heavy influence in their lives, they're going to consider that naturally, right? And that may just be a bad idea. They might not be presented with that opportunity ever again, right? So it is what it is anymore. It wasn't meant to be. No, not so soon, not so quick. There's some things that the results you create are a function of your decisions. We're not just going to run away from our decision making because it's meant to be. In a lot of cases in life, you have to say that so you can move forward and make the best out of your life. And also, sometimes we can see glaringly that it was just a bad decision making. Anyway, so Daddy Freeze is listening.
All that, to be obsessed with that. And these days, do you see the divorce
she's making sense.
Please.
Daddy Freeze thinks she's making sense. I think she's making no sense. Okay. So not all the way like that, right? She's making sense to herself, but I don't think she's considering all the factors, which is what I plan to do in the next few minutes. Okay, she's not considering many other factors. One of them I just mentioned: preparation meets opportunity. Opportunities are not always going to present themselves. You will be influenced with these talking points that have not been thought all the way through properly. Our children, your younger ones, will be influenced by these talking points. Okay, on paper it makes sense. It might make sense to certain people, right? That just wait until you're 30, because you would have been matured. The reality is that the maturity that it takes to get married is not marked between 30 and 40 alone. Like some of the points that other people have made here, some of those. There are people that are 50s that are still struggling to mature. So you can't really mark it between 30 and onwards, right? Some people, they actually need to be in the situation. They need to fall flat on their face, hit the rock bottom before they can even listen to any kind of wisdom that can help them. I say that all the time here. Why? Because there's always an out until you hit rock bottom. You always feel like, I've got this figured out. No. Now I can try this again. But it's beyond just knowledge. Now we're talking about wisdom. We're talking about application, how you apply it to your particular story, timing, right? There's a lot at play, right? So let's keep going.
And all this divorce is only two things that is causing them: cheating and money issues. Yes.
So there are people that get the money, all the money they want to get. By the time they're 30, by the time they're 35, they've lost it all. Okay, all right. Yours truly. Okay. So by the time I was getting married, if money is what we're going to use, all the money I paid for my whole wedding, cash out of pocket, $80,000. 80,000, just the one that came from me, not the ones that came from the parents or anything like that. Cash out of pocket, no credit cards, none. There was money. By the time I was 35, I've lost all that money a few times over. So, well, that's just you a lot. Well, we're talking about, the first money that most people make, they use it to buy candy. You never heard that before, right? So you make wrong decisions. Sometimes it's very subtle, sometimes it's aggressive. It just depends, right? There's some lessons you're not going to learn until after you've actually gone past your 30s. Some of the major lessons you're going to need in marriage, you have to be in your late 30s to get them, those lessons. And you actually have to be inside of a marriage to get those lessons, because you're not able to comprehend some of those lessons unless you've tried the other common sense nonsense bullshit that's clearly not working for a lot of people. Yeah. So, again, on paper, common sense, a lot of these things make sense. But when you test it in real life, you're like, wait, but I tried that. I tried to communicate. It's not working. How come they'll talk down on me? Like, you try all these different things and you're still complaining. Well, maybe we should start to pay attention. That maybe it's not as simple as common sense. I've been saying that for how long now? All right. Common sense says just communicate. Well, that takes two people. How much wisdom is inside of that statement when you realize that there are two people involved? One person feels like they're communicating, the other person feels like they're communicating, but they feel like the other person is not communicating. Both of them feel the same way, but they can't figure it out, right? On top of that, you have in-laws, you have forces, you have friends, you have insecurities, you have life crisis, you have so many other things that plays a part in that. And yeah, common sense will literally end up in the poto. So common sense wise, yes, especially coming from people that have failed in marriage, they will, if they feel like, most of them, if they got married early, 19, 20, remember that video we reacted to last week, they would just blame it on the early time. That if you've spoken to any woman that married at the age of 19, 20, 21, by the time they are filing for divorce, or they're still in the middle of a funky marriage, by their late 20s, they are blaming it on marrying too early. It makes sense for them to blame it on marrying too early, right? Because they're fantasizing about the idea that what if I did not marry too early? My life would be different. It's a fantasy. Still not the reality. The reality is that they're in the middle of marriage. There's something they have not learned. They don't know what they're doing, like most people that get married, regardless of what age, 30, 40, 50. Most people that say I do, they don't know what they're doing. It's not just them, it's just the way it works. You're happy, you're getting married, you fall in love. So you're not, you're thinking common sense ideas like just love each other. Just make sure you communicate well. Plan your money out. Women will say, make your own money. And then wait, but I'm richer than him already, but I'm still struggling, right? So it's complicated, right? So oftentimes you need another eyes to help you look at things and say, hey, let's pick this apart one after the other. Let's build another foundation altogether, because what we had clearly is not working. So again, common sense, wait until you're 30. Yeah, it makes sense on paper, but let's think beyond common sense a little bit deeper. Let's think beyond people that have failed in marriages and they assume it's because they married earlier.
So imagine you don't have anything and then you enter into marriage.
Now, I don't subscribe to if you don't have anything, enter into marriage, okay? Especially as a man. Yes, especially as a man. There's a social construct here, okay? I don't think you should enter into marriage if you can't take care of yourself and a couple of other people. I don't subscribe to that. But that could be true at any point in time, okay? So that could be, so usually 18, 19, 20 years old, you're still trying to figure that part out. That's okay. Take your time. I would say take your time. Take your time does not mean take all the time. Okay, what these people are suggesting people should do is take all the time, and somehow magically a perfect marriage will fall out of the heavens. Yeah, right.
You're a man to please. Make some money. What are you married for in your 20s as a man?
What are you doing getting married in your 20s?
If I catch any woman marrying in their 20s,
what
and then we, the ones in our 30s, are now
20s?
sending money out there, please focus on yourself.
So he said, what business do you have getting married in your 20s? So that's what Adifri is saying about this. I don't think people just wake up and go into the street and start getting married. I don't think that's how it works. I don't think that's how it works. I think people get married because they found somebody and they think they can make it happen. Now, can we teach them some skills, some wisdom around how to do that properly? I will do that before I end tonight. Whatever I share with you tonight will be applicable at any age. At any age, okay? And if you have no experience at 35, you will still struggle with comprehending some of them properly, because you will keep trying to, okay? Anytime I'm trying to prepare this kind of masterclass, all the advices you get out there, even when I'm trying to do research, all of them will say both of you should do this, the couple should do this. It's like they're giving you advices that require simultaneous action from both sides. Unfortunately, that's not the reality. There's always somebody who is trying to uplift the whole situation, or at least feel like they are the only one working on it. Okay? And if they feel like they're the only one working on the marriage, that's a lot of weight on one person. And if they don't have the right counsel, the right support system, the right tools, eventually they will conclude that it's not worth it. So they will stop. Okay? So let me get